All right. Well, good evening out there. I hope everybody is doing doing well, and we're getting started with our Wednesday pre-flection. And as usual, I'll do just a quick audio check on our different platforms, just to make sure that we're up and running with our audio. And yep, there we are. All right. Well, we haven't been here, I think, for the last two Wednesday evenings. The last pre-flection we did was on was toward the end of Ecclesiastes, and then we had I think we had a Wednesday off for Thanksgiving, and then the following Wednesday we had a special service. And then the following Wednesday, I had some hospital visits to make. We had a precious young family that had just a tragic ending to a life, as the mother was about 14 weeks pregnant, and she and her husband lost that baby, and not lost as in lost. I don't like that word, but that seems to be the common word that people use. But anyway, I went and visited with them one Wednesday, and I think that brings us up to this Wednesday now, where we're at here on the 17th. So we have now started our newest Wednesday night Bible study. So here in just a little bit, once I end this pre-flection here, it's at 6:27 right now. Our Bible study will start at 7 o'clock. We'll have our prayer time beforehand. So if you're going to get kind of warmed up with us, we'll have our prayer time beforehand, and then we'll get started. Our Bible study usually starts about 7:20 to 7:30. So you'll see us there, but we usually mute it just for the sake of our people. We want our people to feel comfortable to be able to talk and say the things they need to say without having to worry about cameras being on and all that. So that'll usually start somewhere around 7:20 to 7:30 this evening. So, but we have started, last time we started in the book of Colossians. I've been so excited about starting this since probably 2 years, I guess. Really 2 years I've been studying on this book. And I mean, how can you study so few chapters for so many years, because I'm also working on many other sermons and series and books, and every time I could steal a moment away just for my peace and quiet of my own time. The book of Colossians is a great book if you are leading people, if you are pastoring people. It's a great book to show the heart of a pastor, because this book really just it bleeds Paul's heart all the way through it for the people. But not only that, it lifts Christ and elevates Christ to the highest extent, because that's what the church of Colossae was battling against. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. I first heard this book studied in totality probably 3 or 4 years ago with Dr. Bagwell. I heard him preach a portion out of it, and then on his what he does is online Bible classes, and he actually worked through it, and it was just so beautiful to go through it with him. And on that time, I was able just to listen. I would download all of his episodes, and I encourage you to do that. Dr. Mike Bagwell on YouTube is fantastic. Every other day he posts a new Bible study, and he works through a book or a series. Right now he's working through all the Psalms. I think he just most recently posted Psalm 123. But he's working through a psalm each evening now. Psalm 119, he spent some time on that one. But I think he's trying to cover about a psalm every evening that he posts. But he'll post a new Bible study every other evening. But I was able to download the entire book of Colossians. I'd caught it after he had already studied the entire book. And so I was able to go and download the entire study. And that summer while I was working, I would put my headphones in, and I would just listen, because when you've got them downloaded, it'll just play the next download, and I'm just listening, and I'm just just salivating over this book of Colossians. So I went through it then just over and over and over. And so then I started going back in my own time and doing my own study with it. And so now here we are able to actually present this ourselves and study it with our people here. And so last week we just barely scratched the surface with the book. We really in the notes that I have of my introduction, I always start with a smaller folder, then I'll go to a little bit bigger one, then I'll go to a 3-inch binder. Once I get a 3-inch binder full, that's usually about one book as far as book that will sell. So this is just the start of it, where I've got my first set of notes in here for the introduction. And I don't know if you can see these or not, notes, but here on the top here, this is about a paragraph roughly typed out. That's how much we covered last week, was about that first paragraph. And we started getting some testimonies of salvation and their experience, because that's what we talked about with Paul, was his conversion. And it was a fantastic service. So we didn't get a whole lot covered last week, so really didn't miss much on that one if you weren't able to tune in. But tonight we're going to pick up basically where we left off. We're still dealing with Paul, because I want to discuss Paul before we go, because his very first words that comes out of this book is "I, Paul." So I want to understand who Paul is. Most everybody knows. You ask any Christian who's been in church any amount of time, they'll tell you, yeah, Paul, he wrote most of the New Testament, and I think 27 books in the New Testament. Paul's responsible, for most of those, a great portion of them anyway. And we believe him to be responsible for the book of Hebrews. So you've got a lot of the epistles, the letters to the churches. Just so many books. So most people know about him. Most people know about his sufferings that he had endured, his conversion on the Damascus Road. But it's good to revisit that. Repetition is the mother of all education. I had a gentleman that was reading one of my books, the book of Mark, and I don't say that because I'm glad he's reading my book. I'm just glad that he's reading a book about the gospel. They're not churchgoers. They go. They're kind of they go when they can, convenience and all those things. But he keeps giving me updates on the books that he's reading. I'm very thankful for that. Let me say it that way. And he said the other day, he goes, I said, how's the book reading going? He goes, it's going great. He said, but I've noticed one thing. He said, I don't know if this is intentional or not. He said, but I've noticed you repeat as I'm reading. You'll recover something that we've already read, not in depth, but you'll recover it again and again. And he didn't realize, but he was giving me a compliment on exactly what I want to do in these books. Is I want repetition. Now, the books that we are producing out have just come from my notes. That I take the sermons and I take my notes, I put them together, because sometimes in the sermon I've got more than what I had in my notes, because I'll do some studying right before, like all the writing that's on the sides down through here on the cover or on the front page. This is not in my notes, so I'll bring that out while I'm preaching. So I take both my transcript from preaching that I get off sermon audio, and then I take my notes and I can put them together and make books. But in doing that, you're bringing out sermons, and in sermons you'll usually cover highlights, and then you'll go into the portion for that day. And so I told him, I said, you're speaking to my heart, because that's exactly what I want to have happen. Anyway, so it's good to rehearse some of this stuff that we already know about Paul. So we'll be starting off with Paul today. We dealt with his conversion last week. I think we dealt with that good enough to move forward in this. But Paul said in Philippians 4:11, he said, "Not that I speak in respect of for what I have learned, in so whatever state I am therewith to be content." So Paul had suffered many things, but he said, "I've learned in all these things. I need to be content with where I'm at." A lot of times we get so focused on wanting to change from where we're at that we don't look for the work we can do while we're in that moment. While you're at the hospital, go and visit. While you're in some time of sickness, or maybe you're down from a surgery that you didn't know you needed, some kind of an impromptu surgery that's not life-threatening where you're clinging for your life, but maybe a knee surgery or something to that effect. Use that time to study. Whatever, if you're in that situation, you don't have to be happy about it. He's not saying I'm happy being beaten and shipwrecked and all that. But he's content to be there because he knows there's a work to be done. And we could learn a lot from that for the work to be done. So use that time to study, or use that time whenever my mom was in the hospital. I spent hours sitting in the hospital with her, late night hours too. I usually pulled the overnight shift from 11 to 12 o'clock, and I would stay with her till about 6 o'clock in the morning until I had to work. And man, those overnight hours, I'd get sleepy, and so I'd get up and I'd just walk down the hallway and find a room, somebody that was awake, talk to them, find one of the nurses on and talk to them, witness to them, talk to them about the church. I didn't want to be there at the hospital, didn't want mom to be there at the hospital, didn't like the situation we were in, but I had to find something in that, some work to be done to be content wherewith we were. So Paul also was a concerned shepherd. We can see that in the first verse, or in the first chapter, and we're not studying this right now. We're just kind of getting an overview of who Paul is. He's a concerned shepherd for his people. He didn't write in theology. He didn't write in poetry. He wrote as a pastor who was concerned for his people. That's why I love reading this book as a pastor. That's why I love reading it for me, because it spoke to me. It taught me some things. It showed me some things where I was not being the pastor that I needed to be, and I needed to step up. And I would say, if there's pastors out there, and I know we've got some people now watching around the world. I don't know if you're pastors or preachers around the world watching, but there's some things you can learn in this. And if a pastor will be honest with himself, there's some things that we can learn. There are too many pastors out there that are worried about preaching the message. There's too many pastors worried about. Let me just say it, because I am a pastor, and I've seen a lot of this, and frankly, I'm kind of disgusted by it. There are just too many flat out lazy and selfish pastors in the world. Way too many. We want everything done for us. We act like we're some kind of royalty, that everywhere we go, the carpet needs to be rolled out for us, and somebody needs to have our water sitting in the right place, and all these things. I understand having things done decency and order. The Bible says that, and the service needs to have order, and little things sometimes, the spirit is fleeting, and the spirit can be, shoot away by, things not going right, and, sound systems going crazy, and, people getting up and not ready to sing, or we got to, get up and tune our guitar or banjo all of a sudden, right at the, start of the service, we should have had that done ahead of time. But so, as far as the pastors, we have become, so many have become these prima donna, rock stars that, feel like they need to have a driver, and they got to have, somebody there to, carry their stuff for them. What happened to the guys who they'd get on a horseback and they would ride. I mean, I'm not saying I want to go get on a horse right now and ride anywhere, but I guess if it's what it takes, that's what I'll do. But I don't expect my people to do that for me. I don't expect them to hand me or cater to me. I'm here to be their servant. That's my job, is to serve them. Now, their job is also to serve the pastor. I understand that. But it's not for me to expect that. And Paul writes with a true servant's heart, a pastor's heart. And we have no evidence that to speak to Paul ever visiting Colossae, or at least the church of Colossae. In fact, all the evidence that we have points to him not visiting the church. If you go back to those verses in chapter number 1, after he kind of introduces himself and he starts talking about the things about the church, it's right after that, verse 5 or so. I carried my Bible over just a moment ago to check some things while I was over in the church, and my Bible is laying there on the podium right now, and I've got my notes here with me, but somewhere around the fifth verse, you can start reading, and one of the first things he says is, since I heard, and he goes on down, it says things were declared to him. So he hasn't seen any of this with his own eyes. He never references anything that he saw, any people that he had met, none of that. Everything that he had heard had come from Epaphras. It had come through the word of mouth of what he heard about these people. And so Paul is writing to this group of people with the heart of a pastor, and he's never met them. This is kind of the heart of the book here. This is the heartbeat of this book, and Paul talks about this. He says in verse 9 and 10, he says, "For this cause also since the day we heard," what did he hear? All the things about the church. All the things about the church. "Did not cease to pray for you." We're praying for you because we heard you good people. We heard you love the Lord. We heard that you hold him in high regard and you love one another. We've heard these things about you. It's what Epaphras told us about it. And to desire that you might be filled with the knowledge of his will and all the wisdom. Now, this one verse right here, verse number 9, tells us, I won't say it's the key to the book of Colossians. There'd probably be some people that disagree with me on that. But I think this is a. I mean, if it's not a key, it's a good lock pick. Can I say it that way? This verse will tell us much of what we need to know about what the rest of this book is going to be about. We have two kind of overarching themes in this book. We have, first off, is the heart of the pastor with Paul. People he never met, and he loves them. He's praying for them without ceasing. But then we hear this other thing that he says, that desire that you might be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you might walk worthy of the Lord unto all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. That gives us a clue as to what the church of Colossae was dealing with. I don't want to deal with that right now, but that is a key verse. If you want to highlight or underline that verse number 9, that's a key verse. That's a big verse in this. But everything that Paul is writing reveals the burden of a man who has been burdened by this pastor. He carries the churches on his heart constantly. He carried these other preachers in his prayers with Timothy and Titus and Epaphras. He's carrying these preachers in his prayers constantly. He carries the souls of the people, their tears, the prayers that they're praying. He carries all those. He can't hear them physically, but he feels them. Can I speak to that? I mean, any of these folks that's tuning in on the different platforms we've got going over right now, can I ask any of you that's a missionary, that's a pastor, a preacher, former pastor? Can I ask any of you, have you ever felt the burden for your people yet you weren't near them? You could feel that there was a burden, there was a heaviness there. And that's true. That's the people talking about it. My wife's a twin, and people often ask them, well, do you if she gets hurt, do you feel it? If she's having a bad day or something, do you feel it or something like that? She's like, no, we don't feel that. But I think there's something to this with the burden of the church, because when I'm not with the church, I feel it. When I know that people are hurting, I've got a gentleman down in Alabama right now. I don't know if he's tuned in on this or not. If he is, bless your heart, brother. But he's a member of our church. They live in Alabama, which if you're not near here, we're Tennessee. We're the state of Tennessee, state of Alabama. And they drive at least twice a month up on Sunday. And they'll stay for Sunday morning, Sunday night service. They'll drive back home. Sometimes they'll drive up on Tuesday, stay Wednesday, Sunday, and then drive back home, or go ahead and stay for 2 weeks in a row. Member of our church, great people. He's going through a time right now. And though he's, 180 miles away, about 3 hours away or so, though he's that far away, I feel the weight of that burden for him. So this is what Paul is saying. I'm spending a little too much time with that. But Paul writes, the last thing I'll say about Paul's burden that he carries. He writes in 2 Corinthians chapter number 11, verse number 28. He says, beside those things that are without. What are those things that are without? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Beside those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily. So not talking about the things on the outside, the aches and the pains from the shipwrecks and the beatings and all the things that I've been through. Besides those things, there's other things that are upon me daily. And this is what he says they are: the care of all churches. The care of all the churches. Not part of them, not some of you, not the good people, not the deacons, not the big tithers, not the ones who are faithful to every single service. I've got people at this church that I know full well won't be here on Sunday. They just won't. They're members of the church. Nothing wrong with them. They just won't be here on Sunday. Why? There'll be something else come up. And if they're here, if there's some here that'll be on Sunday morning, they will not be here Sunday night. They will not be here Wednesday night. Does that mean that I don't care about them? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, it's those that usually burden me more. Now you got people out there say, you can't worry about them. You gotta worry about the ones that are here. You gotta preach to the ones that's here. Yes, I've got to preach to the ones that are here because I very well can't preach to the ones that ain't here. But the ones who aren't here, it's still a burden on my heart. Now, there's some that can't be here because of sickness. There's some that can't be here because of the trials of this life. We've got some elderly folks that can't drive at night anymore. It's understandable. I'm not chastising anybody. I'm saying just because they're not here doesn't mean I just can't forget about them. Just say, yeah, you know, whatever. And if a pastor is doing that, let me say this again. We talk to you pastors. If you can have the mindset that, hey, whoever comes in, that's who comes in. If they don't come, I can't do nothing about it. You might need to start praying about getting out of it. That might be the time for you to be ready to step out of that pulpit and let somebody get in that pulpit that's going to love those people when they're there, when they ain't there, that's going to encourage them to be there even more. And every so often, maybe even give them one of those stern recommendations that you need to be here. You know, even if you do have a little bit of ache or pain, you might want to come to church anyway. People need to hear that every so often. They need to hear that. They don't need to hear a pastor that says, if you're here, I'll preach to you. If you ain't, that's this. I'm just... This old saying, I don't like this. Pastor's just a bus driver. Open the door and close it. No, sir. There is a man who was a pastor for many, many years of a very large, independent, fundamental Baptist church out of North Carolina. If I said his name, you'd know who it is. So I won't say that for anybody who's around any type of preaching or revival services at all. Anyway, but that was the advice that he gave my dad years ago. After revival service, my dad was struggling with, he'd not been in the ministry very long. My dad's been there 20-something years now, 25 years. He'd been in the ministry about 5 years, 6 years, and he was just struggling with people not coming to church. And so my dad was talking to him, and he said, Brother Rick, you got to remember, you're just a bus driver. You just open the door, let them on, let them off. That's easy to say when your church is running 1,500. You don't even know who's coming in and getting out. You probably are just basically a bus driver, and you've got your, 15 or 20 other pastors underneath you that have all the small groups then they're worried about those, and you ain't. But in my situation, I'm worried about every single one of them. I'm not just a bus driver. I'm the bus driver. I'm the mechanic. I'm the nurse on the bus. I'm the psychologist, the counselor, the marriage counselor, the youth and teen counselor, the event planner. I did all of it. But if you can sit there and say that all you do is just open the door, might be a time. Paul said that which going to be the care of the churches, all the churches, all churches and all people. Now, he had a lot of churches. I've got one. And how Paul did this with many churches, God must have given him grace that was sufficient for all of his need, because I couldn't imagine having multiple churches. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. Moving on. We've got just about 5 more minutes here, and I need to be heading over to the sanctuary. I hope you're going to join us. If you're joining us now, come back and join us again on the same platforms. We'll be back at about, like I said, 7:20, 7:30. We'll go ahead and get everything turned on and up and running, and you'll see Brother Rick up there doing prayer requests. We do prayer and praise portion where people give their prayer requests and praise reports. But like I said, we mute the microphones during that time, so you'll see it, but you won't hear it. But then we unmute it whenever it's time to start the Bible study. So join in with us, have it up on your screen, have it on your phone, whatever, and just leave the volume up, and then we'll click in whenever we're ready to go with it. But the second thing that Paul dealt with not only was the care of the churches, that the things that were on the inside, but the things that were on the outside. He suffered, he was beaten, he was stoned, he was in prison, he was mocked, he was betrayed, he was misunderstood, he was debated against, he was shipwrecked, left for dead. In 2 Corinthians 11:23 through 25, just before the verse I just read about, besides those things that were without, here's the things that were without. He was talking about in labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in death oft. Time out. We have the audacity in the climate that we live in America. Again, I don't know where you're at around the country that's watching, but in the climate that we live in America, we have the audacity to talk about how we're being persecuted as a church. How many people out there, not missionaries in foreign countries, I have no idea what you're dealing with. I can only speak to kind of what we're dealing with here on this side. And even in America, there are some terrible things going on. We've got mass shootings that are happening and people driving cars into churches and things like that. I understand. But how many people can say this? Labor's more abundant. Okay, maybe. Stripes above measure. I'm out. I've never had that. Prison's more frequent. I've never been put in prison for what I believe. In deaths, listen, deaths, oft. That if you can use the plural of deaths in your experience in preaching the gospel, I wish I could reach to this camera and shake your hand and hug your neck. I pray that I never can use deaths oft. That just the structure of that sentence by itself, not just deaths, but multiple deaths often. Of the Jews, 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one is 39 stripes. Thrice I was beaten with rods. Once I stoned. We only got stoned once, so it got better, I guess. Deaths oft. If that little phrase doesn't stop you in your tracks when you're reading, deaths oft. Yet suffering never stopped him. Paul prayed to Christ, asked for that thorn of flesh to be removed. And in 12:9 in 2 Corinthians he said, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, my strength is made perfect in weakness. Paul learned to glory in his infirmities. Weakness was just a doorway. It was a window for people on the outside, or for people on the outside to see God's strength working in Paul. I'm out of time. We are probably going to cover more than that in our service tonight, I think. We're going to get down next. We're going to talk about the people who he was preaching to, and then we're going to talk about some things you've probably wondered what I've got laying on my lap, because this is not a Bible. And this is not a study guide either. This is a book, and I'll be talking about it a little bit over there. I'm just going to touch on it a little bit and kind of give you not a book review, but I'm going to show you exactly what we are dealing with today and what the Church of Colossae was dealing with is not a whole lot different. Now, we're not being persecuted like they were a lot of the churches in antiquity, but the psychological and spiritual attacks that we're dealing with. We're dealing with some of the same things, and here's one of the most popular books on God's grace and how wrong it is. And I'm trying not to show you the title because I don't want to give it away too soon, but if you've seen it flash around, you know your books. You may already know what it is, but we'll talk about it later. I've got to get over to the sanctuary. Come join me over there in just a few minutes. I'll be logging back on. Grace and peace to you, and I'll be right back with you.
This